Okay, this is World Literature, Chapter 10, When Heaven and Earth Changed Places. I apologize in advance for my shaky camera movements. Primarily, you just need to listen to me read as you follow along in your book, but it's really hard to hold the camera exactly still when I'm turning pages and things, okay? The title of this story is When Heaven and Earth Changed Places. It's adapted from an autobiography of Leli Haislip. And this book is actually a very thick book. The author was a victim during the Vietnam War. She tells of her experiences with the Viet Cong as well as the American soldiers. But this part of the story is from when she was a child, and I believe it's when the Viet Cong first took over Vietnam. Okay. Words to know. Literary terms. Autobiography, a story of a person's life written by the person. Flashback, a scene or story that takes place before the main events of the larger story. Selection vocabulary. Solid is strong, not thin or skinny. Soy is a salty brown sauce made from soybeans. Flexible is easy to bend. Worthy is having value or honor. Dowry is money or belongings that a woman brings to a marriage. Savage is wild, cruel, very unkind. Shriveled is wrinkled, often from being in water. And shrine is a place where people pay respect to a god. Okay, in this story, you do not need to do pictures for solid, soy, or worthy. Okay. Many things are passed down from generation to generation. From our families, we get the language we speak and the food we like to eat. In this story, the relationship between a father and daughter shows that much more is passed down to us. The author of this story has written about her life. My father has a solid build for a Vietnamese man. This meant he probably had come from a family of well-fed, noble people. Many people said he had the body of a natural warrior. He was a year younger and an inch shorter than my mother. Still, he was just as good-looking. His face was round and his skin was brown as soy from working outdoors all his life. He took life easy and seldom hurried. Lele describes her father according to Leli. What kind of man is her father? Seldom, too, did he say no to a request from his children or his neighbors. Although he was relaxed, he was a hard worker. Even on holidays, he was always fixing things or taking care of our house and animals. He would not wait to be asked for help if he saw someone in trouble. Likewise, he always said what he thought. Like most honest men, though, he knew when to keep silent. Because of his honesty and his feelings for others, he understood life deeply. Perhaps that is why he was so calm. As a parent, my father was less strict than our mother. We sometimes ran to him for help when she was angry. Most of the time it didn't work. He would just rub our heads as we were dragged off to be spanked. The village saying went, "A naughty child learns more from a whipping stick than a sweet stick." We children were never quite sure about that. Still, we agreed the whipping stick was a powerful teacher. When he just had to punish us himself, he didn't waste time. Without a word, he would find a long, flexible bamboo stick. Then he would let us have it behind our thighs. It stung, but he could have whipped us harder. I think seeing the pain in his face hurt more than feeling his half-hearted blows. Because of that, we seldom did anything to merit a father's spanking. That was the highest penalty in our family. Violence in any form bothered him. For this reason, I think he grew old before his time. Once, when I was the only child at home, my mother went to Da Nang to visit Uncle Nu. My father had to take care of me. I woke up from my nap in the empty house. Okay, Da Nang is a city in Vietnam. Okay. I began to cry for my mother. My father came in from the yard and comforted me. Still, I was cranky and kept on crying. Finally, he gave me a rice cookie to shut me up. Needless to say, this was an approach my mother never used. The next afternoon, I woke up again. Though I was not feeling cranky, I thought a rice cookie would be nice. I cried a fake cry. My father came running in. "What's this?" he asked with a worried face. "Little Bai Lai doesn't want a cookie?" I was confused. Little Bai Lai is the nickname Lai Lai's father gave her. "Look under your pillow," he said with a smile. I twisted around. Then I saw that, while I was sleeping, he had placed a rice cookie under my pillow. We both laughed. He picked me up like a sack of rice and carried me outside. All the while I gobbled the cookie. In the yard, he plunked me down. He told me stories after that. He told me stories. After that, he got some scraps of wood. Let me start that sentence over. After that, he got some scraps of wood and showed me how to make things. We made a doorstop for my mother and a toy duck for me. This was unheard of, a father doing these things with a daughter. My mother would teach me about cooking and cleaning. She would tell stories about brides. My father showed me the mystery of hammers. He explained the ways of our people. He had much knowledge about the Vietnamese. His knowledge reached back to the Chinese wars in ancient times. I learned about one of my distant ancestors, a woman named Phong Tai Chinh. She led the Vietnamese fighters against the Han. In one battle, she was about to have a baby. She was surrounded by Chinese. Phong Tai Chinh is the way you pronounce that, I believe. Okay. Even so, she delivered the baby and tied it to her back. Then she cut her way to safety, waving a sword in each hand. I was amazed at this warrior's bravery. I was proud to be of her family. Even more, I was amazed by my father's pride in her great deeds. He believed that I was worthy of her example. "Follow in her footsteps," he said. Only later would I learn what that truly meant. The father is very proud of Phong Tai Chinh. He wants Lai Lai to be strong and brave like Phong Tai Chinh. Never again did I cry after my nap. Feng Tai women were too strong for that. Besides, I was my father's daughter, and we had many things to do together. On the eve of my mother's return, my father cooked a feast. He made roast duck. When we sat down to eat it, I felt guilty. My feelings showed on my face, and he asked why I acted so sad. "You've killed one of Mother's ducks," I said. "One of the fat kind she sells at the market. She says the money buys gold. She saves this for her daughter's weddings. Without gold for a dowry, I will never marry." My father looked properly moved at first. Then he brightened. "Well, Bai Lai," he said, "if you can't get married, you'll just have to stay at home with me." I clapped my hands at the happy possibility. My father cut into the rich, juicy bird. He said, "Even so, let's not tell your mother about the duck, okay?" I giggled and swore to keep the secret. The next day, I took some water out to him in the fields. My mother was due home any time. I used every chance to step outside and watch for her. My father stopped working and drank gratefully. Then he took my hand and led me to the top of a nearby hill. It had a good view. I could see the village and the land beyond it, almost to the ocean. I thought he was going to show me my mother coming back. In fact, he had something else in mind. He said, "Bai Lai, you see all this here? This is the Vietnam we have been talking about. You know that a country is more than dirt, rivers, and forests, don't you?" I said, "Yes, I understand. We had learned in school that one's country is as sacred as a father's grave." Lai Lai's father feels deeply about Vietnam. His statement shows that he feels that his country is part of who he is. For him, a country is a place that people honor, love, and fight for if necessary. Good. You know some of these lands are battlefields. Your brothers and cousins are fighting there. They may never come back. Even your sisters have all left home looking for a better life. You are the only one left in my house. If the enemy comes back, You must be both a daughter and a son. I told you how the Chinese used to rule our land. People in this village had to risk their lives diving into the ocean. They took the risk just to find pearls for the Chinese emperor's gown. They had to risk tigers and snakes in the jungle just to find herbs for his table. For this, they got a bowl of rice and another day of life. That is why Feng Tai-Chin fought so hard to rid us of the Chinese. When the French came, it was the same old story. Your mother and I were taken to Da Nang. We had to build a runway for their airplanes. We worked from sunup to well after dark. If we stopped to rest, a Moroccan would whip us. Our reward was a bowl of rice and another day of life. Freedom is never a gift, Balai. It must be won and won again. Do you understand? I said that I did. Good. He moved his finger from the brown dikes. Finally, he pointed to our house near the village. This land here belongs to me. Do you know how I got it? I thought a moment, trying to remember my mother's stories. Then I said honestly, I can't remember. He squeezed me lovingly. I got it from your mother. What? That can't be true, I said. Everyone in the family knew my mother was poor and my father's family was wealthy. Her parents were dead. She had to work like a slave for her mother-in-law to prove herself worthy. Such women don't have land to give away. It's true, my father said. My father's smile widened. When I was a young man, my parents needed someone to look after their lands. In this flashback, the father remembers meeting Leilai's mother. When I was a young man, my parents needed someone to look after their lands. They had to be very careful about whom they chose as wives for their 3 sons. In the village, your mother was known as the hardest worker of all. She raised herself and her brothers without parents. At the same time, I noticed a beautiful woman working in the fields. Then my mother said she was going to talk to the matchmaker about this hard-working village girl she'd heard about. My heart sank. I was attracted to this mysterious, tall woman I had seen in the rice paddies. Imagine my surprise when I learned the girl my mother had heard about and the woman I admired were the same. Well, we were married, and my mother tested your mother harshly. She had to cook and clean and know everything about children. She had to be able to manage several farms and know when and how to take the extra crops to the market. Of course, she was testing her other daughter-in-laws as well. When my parents died, they divided their many farms among their sons. You know what? They gave your mother and me the biggest share. They knew we would take care of it the best. That's why I say the land came from her, because in fact it did. I suddenly missed my mother very much. I looked down the road to the south, hoping to see her. My father noticed my sad face. Hey, he poked me in the ribs. Are you getting hungry for lunch? No, I want to learn how to take care of the farm. What happens if the soldiers come back? What did you and Mother do when the soldiers came? I asked my father. My father squinted on the dusty hilltop. He wiped the sweat from his face. The first thing I did was to tell myself that it was my duty to survive. I had to take care of my family and my farm. That is a tricky job in a war. It's as hard as being a soldier. The Moroccans were very savage. One day the rumor passed that they were coming to destroy the village. You may remember that night. I sent you and your brothers and sister away with your mother to Da Nang. What do you think the father means when he says that taking care of his farm was as hard as being a soldier? You didn't go with us. My voice still held the horror of that night. I thought I had lost my father. Right. I stayed near the village right on this hill. I had to keep an eye on the enemy and on our house. If they really wanted to destroy the village, I would save some of our things. That way we could start over. Sure enough, that was their plan. The real problem was to keep things safe and keep from being captured. Their patrols were everywhere. Sometimes I went so deep into the forest that I feared I would get lost. All I had to do, though, was follow the smoke from the burning huts. Then I could find my way back. Once I was trapped between 2 patrols. They had camped on both sides of a river. I had to wait in the water. Sorry about that. I had to wait in the water for 2 days before one of them moved on. When I got out, my skin was shriveled like an old melon's. I was so cold I could hardly move. From the waist down, my body was black with leeches. But it was worth all the pain. When your mother came back, we still had some furniture and tools to work the earth. Many people lost everything. Yes, we were very lucky. My father drew me out to arm's length and looked me squarely in the eye. Now, Baylai, do you understand what your job is? I squared my shoulders and put on a soldier's face. My job is to get even for my family's suffering, to protect my farm by killing the enemy. I must become a woman warrior like Feng Tai Chin. My father laughed and pulled me close. No, little Peach Blossom. Your job is to stay alive. You must keep an eye on things. Your job is to find a husband and have babies and tell the story of what you've seen to your children. Tell it to anyone else who will listen. Most of all, your job is to live in peace and tend the shrine of our ancestors. Do these things well, Baylai, and you will be worth more than any soldier who ever took up a sword. The father tells Baylai that her job is to have babies and tell stories. Why is this so important to the father? Okay, literature practice. Answer these questions on the back of your vocabulary. Number 1. What quality does Baylai Hayslip admire in her father? That should be what qualities. You should list several qualities here. Number 2. What does the father say that he got his land? I'm sorry, let me start that again. Why does the father say that he got his land from his wife? Why is Feng Tai Chin important to the writer? How would you describe Baylai Hayslip's relationship with her father? Vietnam, what's for dinner? It's not surprising that Baylai's father gives a rice cookie to his daughter. Vietnam is one of the top 5 rice-producing countries on Earth. Heavy rains and a hot climate make it perfect for growing rice. It's common for all family members to help plant, weed, fertilize, and harvest this important crop. When rice is harvested, almost nothing is wasted. After the grains of rice are removed, the rest of the plant is used for animal feed, for making grass mats, and for fertilizer. Although rice is served at nearly every meal, the Vietnamese diet is full of variety. Fish eggs, frogs, and eels are main sources of protein. Other kinds of meat are not common. It's too expensive for most people to afford. Farmers raise chickens, pigs, and ducks, but these animals are eaten only on special occasions, such as festivals or weddings. Fruits and vegetables are the most important ingredients in the Vietnam diet. They grow in small gardens near family homes. Onions, bamboo shoots, sugarcane, soybeans, and yams are plentiful. Banana and coconut trees often grow near houses. These trees are valued not only for their delicious fruits, but also for their shade and privacy.